Find a comfortable position. Let your body settle without hurry. There is nothing you need to hold up right now. Nothing you need to keep carrying from one part of the afternoon into the next. Today's story is called A Quiet Afternoon Nap in a Cozy Caravan. The caravan has already been holding the afternoon for some time. By the time you step inside, the brightness outside has softened. It still lies strongly over the field and the summer grass beyond the windows, but here within the smaller space, it has already changed its nature. It reaches the table in a pale strip, the berth in a warmer patch, the wall panel in a faded wash that brightens one seam and leaves the next untouched. Nothing in the caravan feels harsh. The day is still present, but it has been gentled by the close room, the curtain folds, and the quiet stillness of a place too small to let light spread without shape. The doorway is only a threshold for a moment. Then the body is already inside the quieter air. The step gives a brief wooden answer underfoot. The outer brightness remains behind you for one breath more, wide over the grass and the path and the sun-warmed side of the caravan. Then the interior begins to gather around you. The walls are close enough that they matter at once. The berth runs along one side beneath the window, long enough for the body to settle without negotiation. Across from it, a narrow table or ledge keeps only the few things that belong naturally in a room this size. Perhaps a mug, perhaps a closed book, perhaps nothing that needs your notice at all. A curtain hangs at the window, drawn enough to soften the day without shutting it out. Every surface seems already prepared to ask less of you. The berth is the clearest truth in the room. Built into the side of the caravan, it does not feel like furniture that has been placed there after the fact. It feels part of the structure itself, as though the walls narrowed and the seat widened, and together they decided this would be the place where the body could stop. A cushion lies over it, smoother through the middle where earlier afternoons must have pressed it into use, firmer toward the edges where the fabric still keeps more of its first shape. One side is warmed a little more than the other by the filtered light from the window. A pillow or rolled cushion waits at the back, enough to receive the shoulders once they stop holding themselves so carefully. You lower yourself onto the berth, and it receives you immediately. The seat gives beneath the backs of the legs first, then more fully under the hips. One hand may come to rest beside you on the cover. The other may steady briefly against the wall side cushion or the edge of the table across from you. The caravan is too compact to require much effort in understanding it. Everything is already within reach. The body does not have to test several positions or search for the right angle. The berth offers support at once, and because it does, some small part of the day leaves you there immediately. The cover beneath your hand tells the truth about itself. It has softened where hands and sleeves have often pressed it. A seam lies flatter in one place than in another. The fabric is not delicate. It is simply honest enough to remain itself. If it is cotton, it keeps the faint, dry softness that comes from being washed and used many times. If it is a worn upholstery fabric beneath a thin quilt or throw, then the layers together carry the same message. This is a place that knows how to hold stillness without needing to look perfect. One fold is warmer where the sun has reached it. Another keeps more of the caravan's own temperate shade. The curtain nearest the window hangs in long, still folds. Its outer edge catches more of the afternoon than the inner ones do. The fabric brightens there, then deepens again where it turns inward toward itself. Beyond it, the field continues in summer color and light, but only after passing through the pane. A pale track may lie beyond the caravan. A fence line may cut a darker rhythm across the farther grass. There may be trees just beyond the field, or a hedge, or the faint wash of blue above them. None of these needs to become precise. What matters is that the world continues outside, but now at a distance softened by curtain and glass. The air inside the caravan is warmer than the shade beneath a tree would be, but not close. It has been held by the smallness of the room, and by the day's heat resting in the roof and walls and trim. Yet the curtains and the little stillness of the enclosed space keep that warmth from becoming too much. It lingers in the seat beneath you, in the timber trim around the window, in the narrow shelf across from the berth where sunlight has touched it earlier and withdrawn. It is the sort of indoor warmth that does not rush at the body, only meets it slowly enough that the shoulders begin to loosen before you have quite realized why. You let your weight go a little deeper into the cushion. The hips settle more fully. The lower back finds the place where the berth begins to carry rather than merely hold. One shoulder leans a fraction closer to the pillow at the wall side. The hand resting on the cover no longer feels ready for the next task. The room around the berth asks very little. A small table or ledge stands opposite, near enough that you could reach it without rising. The wood or laminate edge is duller where hands have often found it. If a mug rests there, its handle is turned not for display, but because that is how it was last set down. A book, if there is one, remains closed and uninsistent. A hook near the door may hold a cardigan or light coat. A shelf above the window or along one end of the berth keeps one or two ordinary things in shadow. The caravan is too small for ornament to matter much. Its comfort comes from usefulness. Table, berth, curtain, trim, wall, nothing more is needed. The light reaches you in measured pieces. A warmer patch over one knee, a pale bar across the berth edge, a faded brightness along the curve of the curtain. One corner of the table lit more strongly than the rest. The day is still broad outside, but inside the caravan, it has been broken into portions small enough for the body to live among quietly. You shift once, only enough to let the room take more of you. Perhaps one leg turns a little. Perhaps the shoulder nearest the wall leans more fully into the pillow. Perhaps the head changes its angle toward the window or away from it. No correction needs to be exact. The berth has already done much of the work. The caravan, by being small and close and truthful in its proportions, has already reduced the choices the body would otherwise keep making. The field beyond the curtain remains visible enough to reassure. There is still summer outside, still brightness, still open air over grass. But from where you sit now, the caravan frame matters more than the field itself. The window edge, the curtain fold, the wall panel beneath the sill, these are nearer truths. Outside has become the gentler beyond layer. It no longer asks to be entered or followed. It only needs to remain where it is while you stay here. The first settling happens quietly. The shoulders lose some of the shape they carried in from the day. The knees grow heavier. The hands begin to belong to rest rather than readiness. The body no longer feels placed in the caravan by decision. It begins to feel received by the berth instead. That receiving deepens quickly because the space is so close and sufficient. There is no wide room around you to hold yourself against, no distance between one useful object and the next. Everything belongs to reach. The berth beneath, the table across, the curtain at the window, the pillow behind. The trim and latch and shelf all close enough to matter only as part of the same small supportive field. The longer you remain, the more the caravan seems to gather itself around the berth. The walls do not close in. They simply keep the room from becoming larger than it needs to be. The daylight through the window does not open the space outward. It becomes part of the berth's own atmosphere. The table is not separate furniture in any strong sense. It is only the place where a hand could reach if needed, though the hand does not need to. Everything in the room exists in relation to the body at rest, and because of that, the body begins to trust it very quickly. The berth tells the truth about itself the longer you remain on it. The cushion yields more at the center than the edges. The pillow is denser where it meets the wall. The cover gathers very slightly where bodies have leaned into the same corner of light before. A seam near your thigh lies flatter than the rest. If your fingers move even a little across the fabric, they can feel where repeated use has smoothed one patch and left another firmer. None of these details asks to be studied. They simply reassure. The berth has held afternoons before. It knows what weight feels like when it begins to rest. The curtain continues its quiet work. The field beyond the glass may brighten or dim a fraction as a cloud edge passes, or as leaves further off shift and alter the light before it reaches the caravan. But the effect arrives through fabric first. The curtain takes the edge off every change and hands it on to the room as something gentler. A line of brightness across your lap softens. The table edge pales a little, then warms again. The light at the wall panel changes by one quiet shade and then steadies. The outside world continues, but it has been translated into something that no longer requires your full attention. Your back settles more fully into the support behind it. At first, the pillow or cushion was simply there. Now it begins to carry you. One shoulder gives, then the other. The neck keeps less of its old upright line. A little more of the day leaves you through the simple fact of no longer holding yourself as though you must rise again at once. The room is already measured by reach now. The berth edge beneath one hand, the curtain at the window, the table across from you, the narrow shelf above, the hook near the door if you chose to notice it. After that, very little. The caravan has ceased to be a room you are sitting inside. It has become a small arrangement of surfaces and supports within which the body can stop accounting for the day. The field outside remains only as softened brightness through the window, no longer a place to cross, no longer a place to look into deeply, only the pale continuation of summer beyond the curtain. You shift again, more slowly this time. The hips settle deeper. The weight at the base of the spine gives more fully to the berth. One hand may slip lower into the lap. The other may rest against the wall side cushion or along the edge of the seat where the fabric ends and the trim begins. The head begins to understand what it would mean to lean more fully later, though it need not yet. The brightness beyond the curtain changes once more. This time the effect reaches you first through the skin rather than the eye. The warmer strip over your knee narrows. The edge of the table loses a little of its pale glow. One fold of curtain deepens into softer shade. Then the brightness returns by a quiet degree. None of it is enough to disturb. Felt through the body instead of watched, these changes become part of the nap logic. The smallness of the caravan becomes a comfort in a deeper way now. Because nothing is far from anything else, the body no longer needs to orient itself to space. The table is close. The wall is close. The curtain is close. The bed length of the berth is enough. There is no need to decide what part of the room matters most. The room has already made that decision. The berth is the center. Everything else belongs only as it supports that fact. Perhaps a folded blanket lies within reach at the foot or end of the berth. Its edge is denser where it folds back against itself. A corner curls slightly over the cushion. It remains there not as a decorative detail, but as a simple permission. Later, if needed, it could be drawn over your legs. For now, its presence is enough. It adds to the sense that the caravan already knows what afternoon rest requires and has quietly kept the necessary things close. The table across from you may hold almost nothing. That emptiness matters too. In a room this size, an empty surface becomes its own kind of reassurance. It means there is nothing else to manage. If a mug remains there, it does not ask to be lifted. If a book remains there, it does not ask to be opened. The room has crossed the line beyond which objects no longer invite action. They simply remain where they were left. Your breathing slows a little, not deeply, not in any dramatic, deliberate way. only enough that the upper body no longer works so hard at it. The berth notices first. The cushion beneath the back receives more weight. The shoulders settle another small fraction. The room around you becomes quieter not because anything outside has stopped, but because you have begun to participate less in whatever still continues. At the window, the curtain folds hang exactly as they did before, but they matter differently now. Earlier, they were part of the room's appearance. Now they are part of its function. They keep the day from arriving too strongly. They keep the field from becoming the main setting. They turn outside into a pale outer layer and let the birth become the true world of the story. You belong to the birth now more than to the day outside. That shift happens fully here, before lying down, before any final movement into deeper rest. It happens because the body has stopped relating to the caravan as a place entered briefly and started relating to it as a place to remain. The body no longer belongs equally to all its old directions, not to the field beyond the window, not to the path outside the door, not to the summer brightness lying over the side of the caravan. It belongs to cushion, pillow, table edge, curtain fold, trim, wall, the near few feet of room, and the berth that holds all of it together. The next movement feels natural when it comes. You do not decide in any formal sense to lie down. The berth and the afternoon have already been arranging themselves in that direction from the moment you sat. The movement begins quietly. One shoulder eases back further into the pillow. The hand that rested in your lap shifts onto the cover. One leg draws in a little more or lengthens, depending on what the berth asks of your body. The spine gives up another degree of uprightness. Then the body turns more fully into the built-in bed. The cushion receives the shift without protest. The fabric changes under you in the smallest ways, a wrinkle smoothing, a fold gathering, the deeper part of the berth taking more of the hips than before. One hand may rest briefly at the wall-side pillow or along the berth edge while the head lowers. The caravan is so compact that this turn does not feel like crossing a room or even changing position very far. It feels like the smaller continuation of a rest already underway. You ease down in stages. The back lowers first, then the shoulders, then the hips settle further from the seat-edge attitude they had kept. The head comes later, once the pillow has already made clear where it will receive it. The berth has always been here. The pillow has always been waiting. The curtain has always been holding the afternoon at just enough distance. Lying down is only the next truthful thing. The body changes scale once fully on the berth. What had been a small room with a bed becomes now a bed with a few nearby boundaries. The table opposite is no longer furniture across from you. It is a horizontal edge within the body's near field. The curtain is no longer a hanging object at the window. It is the softened source of light beyond the pillow line. The hook by the door, if it remains in sight at all, has already fallen almost entirely out of use. The caravan itself is beginning to shrink to berth scale. The pillow under your head is not elaborate. It does not need to be. It is enough. It supports the base of the skull and the line of the neck without making itself into an event. The head settles into it gradually. One side of the face may turn a little into the fabric. The neck stops maintaining its old angle. The shoulders, already eased lower, no longer ask for the same inward brace they carried while sitting. A deep quiet begins there first. If the folded blanket is near enough, you draw it over yourself now. Its weight gathers first at the knees, then over the shins, then higher across the lap and middle. It is not heavy, only sufficient. The kind of blanket that knows how to keep warmth close without pinning the body down beneath it. The wool or cotton mix, or the thicker caravan throw, holds the air beneath it at once. That makes a difference almost immediately. The berth, the blanket, and the room begin to work together, And because they do, the body no longer has to keep its own warmth so vigilantly. The window remains at the right distance. From lying down, the view is reduced further. Perhaps only the upper part of the field remains visible. Perhaps one strip of brightness between curtain and frame. Perhaps the softened shape of a tree or hedge, no longer distinct enough to matter. The outside continues, but only as dimmed summer beyond fabric and glass. The body no longer needs it in any stronger form. The blanket settles more evenly. The knees stop belonging to movement and begin belonging to weight. The thighs no longer hold themselves ready. The feet do not need the floor anymore. One hand may rest on top of the blanket. The other may lie near the wall side pillow or against the berth edge. Both become still almost at once. Their stillness feels different now than it did while sitting. It is no longer temporary stillness. It is closer to the stillness of something that expects to remain this way. The caravan continues to shrink around that. No larger interior remains in active awareness. No catalog of cupboards or shelves or corners. Only the berth, the blanket, the pillow, the window held behind curtain, the table edge within reach if needed, the near wall, the small, quiet air of the caravan. That is the room now. A little more of your weight gives way. The lower back settles. The shoulder nearest the pillow sinks. The side of the head rests more fully. You are not yet asleep, but you are no longer holding yourself above rest in any serious way. The afternoon outside goes on dimming by degrees. Perhaps the field beyond the pane loses some of its brighter glare and becomes more even. Perhaps the curtain glows less at one fold and more at another. Perhaps a branch outside the window changes the light on the wall by one narrow shade and then moves on. These changes no longer feel external. They arrive only as alterations in the room's own tone, and the room is already too close and too trusted to wake the body with them. The berth does more of the work now than the body does. It supports the length of you. It carries the hips. It keeps the blanket from sliding away. It holds the pillow in place against the wall or frame. The caravan becomes, for the purposes of this nap, not a room on wheels or a traveling shelter or anything novel at all, but simply a small built shape around a resting body. The body begins to notice less. The table opposite matters less than before. If there is a mug there, it has become no more than a pale shape on the surface. If there is a book, its cover no longer asks to be read even by the eyes. The curtain matters less as fabric and more as diffused brightness. The window matters less as view and more as the outer edge of the room. The blanket matters less as textile and more as the gentle weight that stays over you. Presence begins replacing function. The berth beneath you, the pillow at your head, the blanket over your middle and legs, the softened afternoon beyond the curtain, the table edge, the near wall, after that less and less. A breath passes more slowly, then another. The blanket rises a little, then settles. The berth receives the movement, then holds still again. That quiet rhythm now matters more than anything beyond the caravan. If there is still a field outside, it does not ask to be followed. If the sun is still high somewhere beyond the curtain, it does not ask to be looked at. If summer continues beyond the pane, it continues without witness. Inside, pillow, blanket, berth, breath, that is enough. The room grows quieter not by losing sound entirely, but by losing the body's investment in anything beyond these nearest things. A distant bee outside, if there is one, reaches you only as a trace too softened to matter. A moving branch alters brightness, but does not become an event. The caravan has reduced everything so well that what remains useful now is nearly all within touching distance. You belong fully to the berth at last. The shoulders no longer keep any reserve. The neck does not correct. The hands rest where they came to rest. The legs stay where the blanket holds them. This is not a dramatic threshold, only the point at which the body stops negotiating with support and simply inhabits it. The nearer objects begin to lose even their names. The berth is no longer a built in bed in a caravan. It is simply what lies under you and keeps you held. The curtain is no longer fabric at the window. It is simply the softened source of light. The table is no longer a piece of furniture. It is simply the horizontal plane across from you, now barely relevant. The blanket is no longer something you drew over yourself. It is simply the warm weight above the legs and middle. This is the final narrowing of the nap, not emptiness, only sufficiency. Nothing more is needed than this. The pillow supports the head. The berth supports the body. The blanket keeps the warmth close. The curtain keeps the day gentle. The caravan keeps the whole arrangement small enough that the body does not have to carry any wider world for a while. A long stillness passes like that, made of almost nothing more than these few continuities. The blanket holding warmth, the berth supporting your weight, the pillow keeping the head, the curtain reducing the afternoon, the breath lifting, and settling without disturbing anything else. If some outdoor brightness still shifts beyond the pane, it shifts too softly to matter. If the field continues on the other side of the caravan, it continues without asking anything. If the day grows later, it does so beyond curtain and glass, while here the room has already reached the right stillness. What remains nearest is smaller than all of that. The pillow, the blanket, the berth beneath your back and hips, the faded brightness through the curtain, the quiet weight of your hands, the slow rise and fall of breath, and after that, less and less to notice. The caravan no longer asks to be described. The berth no longer asks to be understood. They have already done their work. The body no longer listens for what changes. It rests in what remains. The pillow keeps the head. The blanket keeps the warmth. The berth keeps the body from the floor and from the larger day beyond the window. The curtain keeps the field and summer brightness at exactly the right distance. A breath passes, then another. Nothing interrupts, nothing enters. Nothing asks for one more shift, one more outward glance, one more thought before drifting. Only the berth beneath you, the small enclosed afternoon, the filtered light through curtain and pane, the body no longer carrying itself alone. Then even those distinctions begin to soften until there is almost nothing left but the feeling of being quietly held inside one small summer room while the afternoon continues gently outside.